Hi, my name is Gianna Barreto. I will be discussing if there's a correlation between bigger brains and bigger minds. So I will be just talking about a study that has been recently published by Erasmus University, and through their study they came to the conclusion that women are less intelligent than men due to the structure of their brain. A media article shown here has responded to the study and blasts it as sexist and inaccurate. The media article points out that IQ tests used to study intelligence within the brain are very controversial, and one neuroscientist in the blog even called it meaningless. So the blog itself questions if IQ tests are a true meaning of intelligence. The media goes on to discuss how women's brains, since they're on average smaller than men's brains, have been used against women throughout the history through neurosexism and bigotry. The study overall found that men scored 4 points higher on IQ tests overall than women, which they associated to men having greater brain volumes than women. However, there is so much more to intelligence in the human brain than just the overall brain size. This makes for this topic of discussion to be very controversial and difficult to argue either way. So, studies have been conducted to specifically analyze the differences in cerebral structure and the anatomical structure between men and women. In this study specifically, they had two subgroups of subjects, one with women and men having matching brain sizes, and the other with women and men having extreme differences in brain sizes. And through neuroimaging, they were allowed to conduct and collect images. So the figure to the right shows coronal and sagittal views of the brain of women that show evidence that women, even when having smaller total brain volumes, had larger volumes of gray matter than men in both extreme and matched groups. Through conducting post-hoc tests, they found that women overall had larger gray matter volumes than men when comparing matched and extreme. The figure to the left of the slide shows three main clusters where women contained overall larger volumes of gray matter compared to men in the matched brain groups. Now we can see that a greater regional gray matter means for more neurons in that area, which then can be correlated to more efficient processing of ongoing and outgoing information. This can all tie together to give a more broad definition of intelligence. Studies have also been performed to analyze cortical thickness in the brain and its association towards general intelligence. The study to the left concluded that larger brains are associated to thicker cerebral cortex. Gray matter have been found to be related to general intelligence. They utilized neuroimaging, and through IQ tests, they collected G-scores and found that on the figure to the left of the slide shows the regression of cortical thickness on G-scores with the correlation in frontal, temporal, parietal, occipital, and cingulated regions. All clusters show a greater cortical thickness with higher G-scores. The figure on the top shows healthy young adults, meanwhile the figure on the bottom shows the aging of the brain and shows the diminishing of cortical thickness, but as you can see, there's still an association to G-scores and cortical thickness. Clusters of red and yellow show positive correlations overall. Now, the second study analyzes the brains of 216 healthy adults, and through neuroimaging, they explored the relationship between cortical thickness and general intelligence in the form of a cognitive ability factor, which is just another subset of general intelligence. And through IQ tests, they found that there is a significant positive association amongst cognitive ability factor and cortical thickness in certain areas of the brain. As you can see through the image to the right, they found a positive correlation of cortical thickness and G-scores within the brain in both hemispheres, as you can see in blue and green. Now I'm going to go away from the relationship of cortical thickness and the relationship between intelligence and show that studies have been shown that networks of interconnected brain regions guide brain activities and lead to general intelligence. Information, when received in the brain, are processed in the gray matter and travel to white matter through a network of fiber bundles, and that's what this study is based off of. They found that differences in intelligence is due to structural organization of networks within the brain. They assessed binary and weighted networks and utilized the DTT method. They found that an increase in IQ associated with shorter network pathways and greater global efficiency in the brain. The figure to the right shows a 3D representation of networks in anatomical space in the brain. The colors of the line represents the percent of subjects that have connections of corresponding brain regions, red meaning that all the subjects share the same interconnecting networks. The figure to the left shows 6 well-known major white tracts in 3 random subjects. This just shows the pathways of neuronal networks within the brain and how they are similar and different between individuals. So now we can see that intelligence is not only associated with cortical thickness or total brain volume, but includes more. This next study hypothesized that individual differences in intelligence are associated to fluid and crystallized components of intelligence, which I will refer to as GF and GC. 225 healthy young adults were studied through structural and functional MRI scans and IQ tests. They found that GC is more strongly related to structure, like cortical thickness of the brain, and accounts for verbal ability and long-term memory. They found that GF was more strongly correlated to function within the brain and associated with reasoning and working memory. This all ties together to give a difference association to general intelligence overall. The figure to the left shows the correlation among cortical thickness and gray matter volume and the association of GC. Meanwhile, the figure to the right shows an increase in brain activity in the frontal parietal network involved in white matter for GF. As you can see, as the IQ scores increase, so does the greater cortical thickness as well as brain activity overall in the brain. Now going back to the main article to which this whole presentation is based off of, the study at Erasmus University specifically explored the association between brain size and cognitive ability between men and women. They had a population of 896 subjects and acquired brain images through MRI scans, and they used general intelligence tests to measure cognitive ability through a wide variety of tests. They concluded that men scored 4 points higher on IQ tests than women, which they positively correlated to men having larger brain volumes than women. However, they also found in the study that women performed significantly better on some of the cognitive exams than men did, but did not publicize this through their abstract or title, which led to misconception of this study overall. So I would like to tie up just to go over the fact that this topic of discussion is still very controversial and there will never be a straightforward answer of intelligence. Even though studies and research show that greater gray matter and cortical thickness have been associated with greater total brain volume as well as higher intelligence, it's only one piece of the puzzle of intelligence that we know within the brain. Even though the study may not be sexist or against women and still shows a correlation between brain size and intelligence, there is more to intelligence than just that. To define intelligence is a very abstract and difficult task to accomplish in just one study and just one association. Here are my references. Thank you.